The most dangerous men in American history did not disappear when the courtroom doors closed. They were placed inside cells, and what happened behind those walls is something the system never wanted you to see. These are not ordinary prison cells. These are custom-built cages designed for men so dangerous, so unpredictable, and so feared that entire facilities were restructured just to contain them. From a serial killer who decorated his cell with drawings of his victims, to a cartel boss who had a luxury suite built underground, this is what life looks like for America's most notorious criminals once the cameras stop rolling. We are going inside the actual cells, the dimensions, the routines, the psychological warfare between inmate and institution, and what these men did to survive or dominate, even from behind bars. If this is the kind of raw, unfiltered prison content you want to see more of, subscribe right now. We go where other channels won't. First, understand the system. Not every notorious criminal ends up in the same facility. The Federal Bureau of Prisons has a classification system that determines exactly how much freedom, or how much isolation, a man will live with for the rest of his life. At the top of that system sits ADX Florence, the administrative maximum facility in Florence, Colorado, known simply as the Supermax. It is the end of the road, the place built specifically for men the system has decided are too dangerous for any other prison on Earth. ADX Florence houses approximately 400 inmates. Each one spends 22 to 24 hours per day alone in a 7 by 12-foot concrete cell. The cell contains a poured concrete bed, a concrete desk, a concrete stool, all built directly from the floor. Nothing can be moved. Nothing can be used as a weapon. The toilet automatically flushes if it is blocked. The shower runs on a timer. The single window, 4 inches wide, is angled so the inmate can see only a patch of sky and nothing else. The cell is deliberately designed to eliminate every sensory anchor to the outside world. The first cell we go inside belongs to Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the most powerful drug lord in modern history. A man who once bribed half a government, ran a cartel worth an estimated $3 billion, and escaped from 2 maximum security Mexican prisons, once through a tunnel built beneath his shower floor. When El Chapo arrived at ADX Florence in 2019, the Bureau of Prisons took no chances. He was placed in solitary housing under special administrative measures, known as SAMs, the most restrictive classification in the entire federal system. Under SAMs, El Chapo was permitted almost zero outside communication. No phone calls to non-family members, no interviews, no access to news. Mail was monitored word by word. The government's fear was simple. Even from a concrete box in Colorado, this man had the network and the influence to run operations, order hits, and corrupt officials. His cell at ADX is 7 by 12 feet. He exercises alone in a slightly larger cage attached to the cell for 1 hour per day. He has no contact with other inmates. Former prison officials described him as visibly deteriorating within months, a man built for power, movement, and control, stripped of all 3 simultaneously. Gacy, El Chapo's attorneys filed complaints detailing sleep deprivation caused by guards checking on him every few hours throughout the night, lights kept at low illumination around the clock, and sensory monotony so severe that he began experiencing hallucinations and memory loss. The Bureau of Prisons denied all claims. The second cell belongs to Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. For nearly 2 decades, Kaczynski lived inside ADX in a cell that became one of the most studied in American prison history. Unlike El Chapo, Kaczynski adapted with disturbing efficiency because ADX, in many ways, resembled the Montana cabin where he had already chosen to live alone for years. Kaczynski was permitted books and writing materials. He filled thousands of pages, journals, essays, correspondence with academics and journalists. He was, by all accounts, the most intellectually active inmate at ADX Florence for 20 years, a man the system tried to silence, who never stopped communicating. What do you think is more terrifying? Physical isolation or a mind that cannot be imprisoned? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Now we move from the federal supermax to the state system, and into the cells of men who shape the culture of prison itself. Because not every notorious criminal ends up in solitary. some land and general population, and that changes everything. Charles Manson spent 46 years in the California prison system, moving through San Quentin, Vacaville, and finally, Corcoran State Prison. At Corcoran, his cell became a destination. Prison officials, psychologists, journalists, and even celebrities sought access to him. He received more mail than any other inmate in California Department of Corrections history, reportedly over 60,000 letters per year at his peak. Manson's cell at Corcoran was a standard 4 by 9 foot housing unit, but he transformed the space around him the way he always had, through manipulation, correspondence, and psychological dominance. Younger inmates sought his approval. Guards reportedly found him unsettling not because of violence, but because of how carefully he watched people and how rarely he seemed afraid. John Wayne Gacy, convicted of murdering 33 young men, spent 14 years on death row at Menard Correctional Center in Illinois before his execution in 1994. His cell became internationally known for one disturbing reason. He painted inside it. Hundreds of detailed oil paintings, many of clowns. His alter ego, Pogo, were produced from his cell and sold to collectors for thousands of dollars. The psychology of Gacy's painting is studied to this day. Prison officials debated whether allowing him to paint was rehabilitation or a platform. His work sold. His notoriety grew. People wrote to him, sent him money, proposed marriage. The cell that was meant to erase him from society became a studio that kept him relevant, which is exactly what he wanted. Jeffrey Dahmer never made it to death row. He was sent to the Columbia Correctional Institution in Wisconsin, general population with certain restrictions. Unlike the mythologized monster the media portrayed, prison officials described Dahmer as cooperative, quiet, and meticulously clean. Now, he maintained his cell with obsessive order, the same behavioral pattern that had defined his crimes. Dahmer was initially kept away from general population for his own protection, but he eventually requested integration. He wanted human contact. He told prison psychologists that solitary confinement was the closest thing to his apartment he had ever experienced, and it terrified him more than other inmates ever could. Inside prison, Dahmer found religion. He was baptized in the prison whirlpool. He began corresponding with a minister. Inmates who interacted with him described a man genuinely trying to understand what he had done, though many found his calmness about it the most disturbing thing of all. He was beaten to death by a fellow inmate in November 1994, less than 2 years into his sentence. Then there is the story that defines what happens when a notorious criminal is not properly contained. Whitey Bulger, Boston Irish mob boss, FBI informant, and one of the most dangerous men in American organized crime, spent years at USP Tucson after his capture in 2011. Despite being in his 80s, Bulger's reputation traveled with him. Other inmates knew exactly who he was. And in October 2018, within hours of being transferred to USP Hazleton in West Virginia, a prison known for extreme violence and understaffing, Whitey Bulger was beaten to death in his cell. He had been transferred to Hazleton despite documented warnings from prison staff that he was too high profile and too vulnerable for that facility. The transfer happened anyway. 3 inmates were later charged in connection with his death. The attack had reportedly been planned before he even arrived, meaning someone on the outside, or the inside, had arranged it. Bulger's murder inside a federal prison raised one of the most uncomfortable questions in American corrections. Who actually controls what happens inside these facilities? The Bureau of Prisons, or the networks that exist within them? The investigation remains murky. The full answer has never been made public. What these cells share across every facility, every criminal, every level of security is this. They were designed to end the story, to close the chapter, to put these men somewhere the public would never have to think about them again. But the cells did not end the stories. They continued them in ways nobody predicted. El Chapo's cartel still operates without him. Manson's followers still exist. Gacy's paintings still sell. Dahmer's name still trends. And Bulger was killed by a system that could not even protect him from itself. The cell is not the end. It is just the next chapter. If you want to go deeper inside the American prison system every single week, subscribe right now. Every story we tell is real. Every detail is documented. And we are just getting started. Somewhere tonight, inside a 7 by 12-foot concrete box, another man sits in silence. Infamous, forgotten, or both. The door's locked. The world has moved on. But the story inside that cell is still being written. One day at a time, in the dark, with no audience and no end date in sight.